What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Zaynomics Gaming. I hope you are all having a wonderful weekend so far. Today I'm going to be talking about grenades. I have a wonderful build that is centered around the Warlock and Verity's Brow. But the beautiful thing about this build is you could use pretty much any weapon in the game as long as you are matching the energy subclass type with the weapon. So during this video, you will see me use a plethora of arc weapons to try to fill out what synergizes the best with this build. In most of the footage, you will see me using Trinity's Ghoul, but I've also used Risk Runner, as well as I've used Shadow Price and Symmetry, all kinds of different arc weapons inside of PvP, PvE, Dares of Eternity, etc., etc. Now, for the most part, for PvE, I am running Trinity's Ghoul, but before we get into all of that, I am running the Stormcaller Warlock class, and we have to use Arc Bolt grenades. They're the best grenades in all of my testing, whether it's Solar, Void, Stasis, anything. The Arc Bolt grenades are just amazing, and for the most part, we will be using Top Tree Stormcaller because of the Arc Web. That's really the only reason. Arc Web, that way we could chain that lightning, and that's the best thing about this build. We're able to chain that grenade damage between enemies. Now, I am using a Healing Rift. It's really not important here. One of the main key things is Trinity's Ghoul, and you have to have the catalyst for this to work. Now, like I said, I have plenty of arc weapons that I've been testing with, but Trinity's Ghoul is by far the best inside of PvE because one, we have overload bow mods, and not to mention we know next season that we will have anti-barrier bow mods as well as SMG overload mods. So there's so many arc options that you can go with. So this build will actually be very relevant next season as well. Now, Trinity's Ghoul exotic trait is Lightning Rod. Precision kills basically give you the Lightning Rod perk. That way you can chain lightning capabilities. Now, the catalyst actually triggers Lightning Rod for any arc damage final blows, whether that be your super, melee, grenade, all of that good stuff. As long as you get an arc kill, you will proc this exotic trait, which is perfect for ad clearing and so on and so forth. Now, for our exotic helmet, we are going to be using Verity's Brow, which its exotic trait is the 4th magic. Weapon final blows with a damage type matching our subclass energy grant death rolls up to ×5. So now you guys can see where the synergy is coming here. If I throw a grenade at ×5, I get maximum damage, as well as my allies get increased grenade regeneration, and I get a portion of my grenade back as well. I'm also pairing this with firepower, which basically allows more damage for my grenade, assuming I have a charge of light stack, which you'll see in the back, and they do stack with each other. I'm also gaining bonus super energy on melee kills, as well as gaining bonus energy on grenade kills. And for the most part, I'm spec'd out with discipline on all of my stuff. Aside from the arms, I am using overload bow. Now, I am using sort of a melee build as well with momentum transfer. If I get a grenade kill, I get melee energy back. I'm also using shield break charge. We basically want to stay consistently with charge of light. I'm also using elemental ordnance, which defeating a combatant with a grenade spawns an energy elemental well of my subclass. So for the most part here, I'm trying to go with a melee / grenade style build, and I'm just implementing some melee mods here and there. Now, I'm also using Innervation and Absolution. Basically, when I pick up an orb, I'm granting myself grenade energy and other ability energy as well. I'm also using 2 outreach mods as well as Well of Ion. So when I pick up a well, that will increase my melee damage for a short duration. I believe it's about 10 seconds. Alright, so for a build recap. Basically, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to get a precision kill off with Trinity's Ghoul. That way I can start the Death Rose chain. Once I have Lightning Rod procced, I will basically shoot at the ground or shoot at one enemy, and it will chain that lightning. That will give me the ×5 Death Rose immediately. That will also have the opportunity of proccing Charge of Light because I have Shield Break Charge, and there's a lot of arc enemies inside of this strike, so it works out perfectly, especially with Devil's Lair strike. Now, I have not played this on Master, so that's one thing you kind of gotta look out for. It's basically just a godly build that you can play for fun. I've used it inside of Gambit, I've used it in PvP, I've used it as well inside of Dares of Eternity. It's just really a great feeling. I'm getting like 200 kills or more inside of Devil's Lair Strike. And that's one of the best things about the build. So in the gameplay, you will see how all of this works. Now, in the beginning of this video, I was using Risk Runner. The only problem with Risk Runner is it's not as great of an ad clear weapon as Trinity's Ghoul. Trinity's Ghoul has the overload bow mod, so it helps with the champions, as well as you can keep the distance. You don't really have to get up on your enemies. Now, Risk Runner works better inside of PvP, obviously, over Trinity's Ghoul, but Trinity's Ghoul is by far the best PvE selection out of everything. Now, you can, use a Void subclass and run like Axiom Bolt. Those are okay, but I find the Arc Web to be just the perfect grenade for this, because you're able to chain that lightning amongst enemies. Now, sometimes I end up screwing up my grenade throw and I end up missing, so you might want to throw a fastball mod on, just because you can't throw quite as far compared to like hunters and stuff. So you may want to do that, but overall it is just a really fun build, and I felt like I was Zeus or something. The amount of damage that you put out, the amount of enemies that you are able to kill with this whole build is just very satisfying. But to make it all work with Trinity's Ghoul, you've got to have the Catalyst, because it just makes it so much more consistent and easier to use. Now, for my special weapon, I was running a shotgun, but you can use a sniper or something like that. Now, obviously, if you're a solo player and you're trying to play like Grandmaster or Master, you're trying to do it by yourself, you're probably going to want to use Arbalist and, not worry about this build. This build is strictly for pure fun, for like legend content. I wouldn't say that you could use this for, Grandmasters or anything like that. This is not like a game-breaking build where there's like major bugs and you could just get away with just completely obliterating Grandmaster difficulty content. Now, I know what you're thinking. If you wanted to use a Void subclass, you could use Axiom Bolts. Those grenades work very well as well, but you really don't want to use this build for like stationary territorial type grenades, like your solar grenade or your Void grenade. You really don't want to use those, because then the enemies could just back out of those. You really want something that can chase. And unfortunately, with the solar subclass, the firebolt grenades, they just don't pack enough damage. You can get a lot of them, but you're not going to really get any kills. So I don't recommend using that. And besides, Trinity's Ghoul helps you proc death row so much easier and faster, because you're able to get so many chained kills. Now, if I was going to use a solar subclass, I'd probably use Tiku's Divination, which I do have a build for that with the Hunter. But you can use Tiku. Tiku works really good. So for the most part with this build, like I said, Tiku, it works really good, but the solar grenades are just not up to par. So I wouldn't even bother using those. If I was going to use a different subclass, it would be the Void Walker, just because the Void Walker just has the Axiom Bolts, so you're able to track enemies. But, the Arc Web is definitely the best. I definitely hope you guys give it a go. It was so much fun for me, and this is probably one of my favorite builds inside of PvE. This is probably what I'll use majority of the time, unless I am trying to tackle different content as far as like Grandmaster, something more strategic. As far as full-blown just power, I would rate this a 10, and as far as fun, I would rate this a 10. Practicality, I would give it an 8, just because it's not going to work as well as you'd want it to inside of Grandmaster or Raids or something like that. But given the fact that we will have bow mods next season, and we have bow mods right now for the next month, I definitely suggest you guys give it a go. If you do not have the catalyst for this weapon, all you have to do is go to Altar of Sorrows and just start picking people off from a distance. You'll complete the catalyst in no time. Now, throughout my testing, I have used Bottom Tree Stormcaller as well, and it works just as good, but the top tree does work a little bit better, just because you're able to chain the grenade bolts a little bit easier. But other than that, both the bottom and the top just work phenomenally, and I suggest that you guys try out each one. But if you're gonna go in PvP and you want to play PvP, you love hand cannons, you can use a palindrome. It's just The thing about the Arc and Trinity's Ghoul is you're able to just get those kills, and each lightning strike, it immediately goes to 5. So in PvP, it's going to be harder to make this a little bit more practical. So if I had to give a PvP rating, I'd probably give it maybe a 5. There are times where you can really get some nasty plays off and you're able to make it work. But to get ×5 is going to be very difficult, especially if you're trying to use a bow. That doesn't really happen inside PvP. You know, if you're playing other good players, it's really not going to happen either, because they know how to counter it, they know how to stay away from you. So, and you know, with a palindrome or something like that, or risk runner, it's not like you're going to pop off and get 5 kills in a row. You know, the enemies aren't just as squishy, I guess you could say, because, you know, in PvP, everybody wants to win. So I hate the mentality of, oh, people are sweaty, you know, tryhards. You know, everybody wants to win, and it's everybody that has wanted to win has been going on for years. Nobody wants to lose. So, you know, the idea of this build being super godly inside of PvP just isn't practical. Does it work? Of course it does. Can you get some amazing kills? Yeah, but you're not going to walk in there and go to B's control point and throw a grenade and kill 6 people and get ×5. It's just very hard to do. So with that being said, if I had to give it a PvP rating, I'd probably give it a 5, because it is fun. It's just not practical. Inside of PvE, however, is so much fun. I would give it literally a 10 for the fun of the build. I love using it, and like I said, it is godly. I feel like Zeus. I'm Thor. I'm coming down. I'm just lightning everywhere, and I'm obliterating everyone. So, for a small recap here, we're using Verity's Brow. You can use any subclass that you would like, as long as you are using the matching subclass type with the weapon. So if you're going to use Void, you could use Gnawing Hunger, you could use Telesio, etc., etc. If you're using Solar, you can use, I don't know, Sunshot, Polaris Lance, you could use stuff like that. Tiku's Divination, that's another one. But I find the Arc to be the best in all of my testing. So take that with, I guess, a bit of information if you do decide to experience other builds or go further on than I have. Now, for the mods, I am using Firepower. You got to use Firepower, that way you can stack that ×5 damage, and that way you can get extra damage with the charge of light. We're also running melee, that way we can get our super back as quickly as possible. We want to have that super. And most of the footage here, I did use a shotgun, it had Thresh on it. So I'm able to chain and get that super energy as well. This is all about maximizing your ability efficiency. And that's the best thing about this build. You're getting the damage, you're getting grenade recharge, you're getting melee recharge, you're getting energy, and you're able to use all of that and get it back in a timely manner. That's the best thing about this build. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're new here, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. It is greatly appreciated. Before I go, like I said, this build will be very relevant next season. So complete that Trinity's Ghoul Catalyst, and also get familiar with actually playing with it. Once you get it down, you will never not know how to use it. So you could go into Master Lost Sectors, you can go in Legend Lost Sectors, you could use this build, you could use this build in Dares of Eternity, any content you want. The only content I don't recommend using it in is Grandmaster, unless there's just a ton of Arc shields and we need an Arc player, because you have to play aggressively with this build. As we speak right now, I'm currently working on a beginner hunter PvP build, so stay tuned for that. I know this was a long video. Please go out and try this build for yourself. Thank you all so much for coming and watching. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you guys inside the next video.